and welcome to Alexa's Room, where we are not law enforcement, we are not medical professionals, we are not lawyers, we are just people who have opinions about all things going on in the true crime community, including what the heck is going on with the Karen Reed case. So, if you are just stumbling upon my channel, thanks so much for stopping by. Really appreciate it. If you like what I talk about in today's video, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Make sure you hit the notification bell so you never miss another video from me. And make sure you hit the like button too, because that tells YouTube that this news is important and we want to reach as many people possible with these stories. So that said, what are we talking about in today's video? Well, if you are just stumbling into this case, earlier this week, I can't believe it feels like a lifetime ago, Judge Cannoni has declared a mistrial in the Karen Reed case. We are set to meet back in court on July 22nd. So, really not too far off. A couple of weeks from now, we'll be back in court for a quick hearing just to see if the Commonwealth, what, if anything, they are planning on retrying Karen Reed. Based on the previous statement that they had released earlier in the week, it sounds like they will be retrying her, but will they be ready? When will they be ready? And are we going to have overlapping trials with the Adelson case in September? Who the heck knows? It seems like Judge Cannoni is trying to get this retrial up and running as quickly as possible, or figuring out what the heck the lawyers have in store. So I will keep you guys all posted on what's going on with that. But what I wanted to talk about in today's video, so there's been a lot of stuff circulating over the Twitterverse. I try to stay back from overly participating, just because it's kind of the Wild West out there, Twitter X. But you guys are more than welcome to follow me as well too. A lot of times I just retweet information as I'm seeing it. And one of those stories that was popping up constantly in my feed, this was actually, I think, last week, towards the end of the week. I don't even think this started circulating this week, but the mainstream news media only started reporting on it after the judge declared a mistrial, which is ironic, or during the last day of deliberation for the jury. I can't recall exactly when, but it was definitely after the fact. This is kind of old news to the people who've been carefully watching this trial and following along. And what I am referring to is that deepfake photo of Alan Jackson and Karen Reed, because of course they would want to slut shame Karen Reed. Why not? It's enough. It's not enough to only hang out her dirty laundry and paint her out as a crazy see you next Tuesday, but also too, we have to slut shame her at the same time. I've never really seen the public go after, not so much the defendant, but more go after the lawyers in terms of their character and their personal lives. Um, no matter how heated it's gotten, not even, I don't even remember in the Casey Anthony case. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't remember anybody attacking Jose Baez's personal life and personal affairs. But nevertheless, that is what Team Con, Team Con, or Team Anti Karen Reed, that whole group of people seem to be spewing up in the media. So I'm going to pull up this, and it was quickly debunked last week, but because the mainstream media is just now picking it up, they're trying to spin it up as, oh yeah, this is a real image of Karen Reed canoodling with Alan Jackson. And it's just really distasteful too, because it shows him like allegedly kind of making a pass at her chest area that just seems really inappropriate. So it just paints the two of them in just a really gross light. And again, I felt like this whole case gave me a lot of Mean Girl energy, specifically in regards to the testimony with Jen McCabe, Carrie Roberts, a lot of the other women as well too. Laura Sullivan's family, I think her cousin, who was good friends with John as well too. That whole Aruba trip. I just feel like there was a whole lot of Mean Girl energy. Um, kind of I don't know, that's the vibe that I got. Women being jealous of women, trying to tear down people, and that's a lot of what I've seen on Twitter too, is just women tearing down other women. And I'm not the only one who's called that out. Melanie Little has called that out, and so many other people. And I'm so happy that we're bringing this issue to light, because it's just distasteful and it has nothing to do with the case whatsoever. Commenting on what Karen Reed is wearing in court. I think anytime you take an attractive woman who is um, a defendant in any kind of case, a murder case, or even, looking back at a lot of cases with, um, female inappropriate relationships between females and their students, there's always a comment on appearance. And, in this case where the defendant is evidently innocent, or at least from the evidence that has been presented thus far. If you feel differently than me, please let me know what you think in the comment section below, respectfully. I'm always open to respectful discussions, as I always say as a disclaimer, but show me the evidence to back it up. So it just feels, again, a lot of mean girl energy, people trying to slut shame and tear down, and I'm not about that. So we are going to play this clip. This is from News Nation, who reported on this story as well too, but they brought in an AI expert to debunk the entire image. A lot of people have already debunked it, but it was just nice to see on a mainstream media outlet like News Nation kind of nip this thing in the bud. And before, TMZ, like I've said on my Twitter a couple times too, Court TV has just totally tanked, and like, just like absolutely disgusting. A lot of their recent reporting, specifically in this case, just really disappointing too. They're as bad, in my opinion. They're the TMZ of trial coverage, but that's just my opinion. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pull up this clip from News Nation, and then we'll get into some of our other stories, because guess what, y'all? Paul O'Keefe has made another appearance for a second interview, and we're going to break that down, as well as those letters between the DA's office and the feds that came out a few months ago, or actually rather over the course of the last year. It's pretty incredible how far back these date. So we are going to get into all of that right now.
Now by Lars Daniel. He is a digital forensics expert who has given expert testimony in both state and federal court.
So this is the clip I think it's a live photo technically, and the story behind it. Again, I'm just so glad, like, even this headline, Lars Daniel interview on Shallow Fake. Yeah. And I respect the heck out of News Nation for reporting this and bringing on an actual expert, because like I've said, in my field, I'm in marketing and we use AI all the time. So it was quickly apparent to me that, yeah, the likelihood of this being an AI concocted image is totally possible in today's day and age and technology. So I'm glad that they brought on an expert to actually talk about it and debunk it. But this is the photo in question of Alan Jackson right here. This is allegedly Karen Reed, and you see him kind of like holding her in a way that would suggest they are closer than we think.
Thousands of attorneys, How to Understand and Present Digital Evidence. And he literally wrote the book. It is called Digital Forensics for Legal Professionals. If there's anybody who can spot a fake on a photo or a video, it is Lars. So Lars, we had to call you right away and ask you about these cockamamie photos that went all over the internet. I just want to make sure our control room has the right ones, because we were showing the house where the police officer died, Karen Reed's boyfriend. But the photos that went around the internet showed that right there. It showed Alan Jackson kind of snuggling around Karen Reed. And a lot of people believe this stuff. They hit the live button and it brings the photo to life for a second and a half. And you do not believe that this is real. And why is that?
No, I certainly do not believe this is real. I think there's only one photo actually that's a part of this that may be real, and that's the lunch photo. The other photos have some real issues. I'd be happy to show those to you actually, and we can see those together. So I'm going to share screen right now and show you some of that information. So if you're looking at my screen, one thing I want to show you right here, Ashley, first is that when we're looking at this photo on this side, You know, if you look around, we can read the parking sign here. We have high resolution in the background. We got high resolution bushes. Well, we've got a very high resolution, a very low resolution face. And there's certainly enough reference photos out there to replace the face.
And not for nothing too, like not to stop too much, but like just looking first glance, like for me, the biggest sticking point is like this weird glare here. It's very like abundantly clear that this is a line that somebody like copy and pasted or just didn't do a really good job of editing this photoshopping this photo very well. And from the little I know on Photoshop, because my brother is into animation and illustration, he knows a lot deeper on this topic. But even just like this little streak here stood out to me immediately, and I'm like, "There's no way this is real." But also, too, you zoom out from that and you look at this allegedly being Alan Jackson here, which it doesn't even look. I mean, he looks more like Kris Jenner, in my opinion, than he does not Kris Jenner, excuse me, Caitlyn Jenner, than he does Alan Jackson here. It's just like a weird, like a lot older too, like Lars is saying. Um, he's going to talk about the hairline. So, but again, why? Who's this guy then? Why are they matching clothes? Like they look like they could be the same exact person. No, unless he's got an evil twin, and this is a soap opera that we're in. But
From all this footage that's out there on this case for Karen, and honestly, when I'm looking at this, my first impression, we look over here, we see the gentleman wearing a Fitbit over here, it looks like, or a Whoop band. And that
yeah,
on his wrist, we see in this photo right here as well.
Yep.
And this hairline and this hair shape certainly resembles Mr. Jackson more, in my impression, than this interesting looking haircut. And one thing to note, when you're talking about forensics, in particular, tool marks related to applications like Photoshop or CapCut and the rest, like we're going to talk about in a moment, this hard line right here is pretty evident of a potential tool mark, actual tool mark of using a tool within Photoshop. But one interesting thing.
Okay, and I'm just noticing. One sec, before you go on, but like right below your red circle there on Karen Reed's face, she's got what looks like a 1980s tube top, the black tube top. But if you go out to the lunch photo, the top on Karen Reed is higher up towards her neck. It's actually not a tube top. Did you notice that? I just noticed it for the first time. I don't know why I didn't notice it earlier today.
Yeah, I did notice that. And honestly, I did show some interest in that shirt, but there's more items that are more interesting to me, like this. So we have this incredibly skinny leg.
Yeah.
We have some other items like that. And when we look at the video in a moment, this arm right here, his arm morphs in shape. It grows larger and smaller, and there's a lot of anomalies. And it has been edited. I know it's been edited. There's no doubt about it. I actually don't even need to see the video to tell you it's been edited. We can listen to just the audio and see the tool marks in that. That's right here.
You're saying
this is called.
Yeah, you can recognize tool marks in audio, because in the audio, I don't think the audience heard the audio, but it kind of sounds like the din of a restaurant. Like the person who took that video might be inside the restaurant looking out the window at the action. Am I correct?
Yeah, that's right. But honestly, I don't even know if that's actual audio. I think it may be dubbed in, because you can do that in CapCut, which is the tool that was used here. So let me show you this real quick so we can see. You don't even need the video to prove that it's been edited. What we see here is called a spectrogram. A spectrogram is a visual representation of auditory data. So it allows you to see audio data. And you see these hard lines, these big cuts in between the audio. Those are tool marks. That is a cut of an audio file where you have somebody who's used an editing tool to slice out a section. And if we listen to it, which I'll play in just a moment, you'll actually hear a bing, a system sound, either from a computer or a phone, probably a computer, where it's on the editing while he's making it. So I'm going to play that now if you'd like to.
Yeah.
That nice bing is a system sound. Now, that background noise.
I know that sound very well, because I can't tell you how many times I'm on a Zoom call with a client and my wife texts me and she's like, "Hey, I'm on my way home," or "I'm on lunch," or she's sending me a video and it dings, and the person on my Zoom call can hear that because I have my notifications enabled. So I know that sound very loud and clear. So yeah, that makes 100% sense.
CapCut, this tool that we're utilizing here, the same one used to edit this video file, has built-in sounds. I found many sounds that sounded very similar to this. And if we transition to the video, we can see some more evidence of that as well. So I've actually taken this video and I've spliced in those still images so we can compare that, because that's another element here as well. So we have the original video, and I'm going to pull it across so you can kind of see it. We see that arm. See the arm shaping differently? I'm going to zoom in.
Does your business need a scheduler, a CRM?
Let's skip through these damn commercials.
That arm, it changes size. Like morphing in size, bigger and smaller throughout. So that's one issue. It changed. I'm going to zoom in. So if you watch that arm, it changes size. Like morphing in size, bigger and smaller throughout. So that's one issue here. But the other issue is that you cannot have a low resolution video that produces high resolution clips. So there's alleged still shots from this video, not possible. But there's also a real rookie mistake here, and that's the following. If you watch this video all the way through, what comes up? This, that CapCut sound right there, that's appended to a video when you edit it in the CapCut software, and it adds it to the end if you don't delete it. So that's in there on every CapCut file unless you go and selectively delete it after you produce it. So that's just a total rookie mistake.
So, okay, you're amazing.
And yet, yeah, he is amazing. And yet so many media outlets like I expect it from TMZ. We expect this trash from TMZ, of course. But Court TV, come on now. Court TV, Fox News, all these other media outlets. I think the Boston Globe even might have done a piece, or the Herald, one of the two. Like, come on now. Who are your sources? You guys are supposed to be professional media outlets. And it takes sleuths on the internet or, experts like this to come on and say, no, that's a fake. Come on now. Come on. You could have done your due diligence. News Nation did.
But the rest of us are not. Is there something that we can do out here in the mere mortal universe to be able to recognize? Because I did not see the CapCut end graphic in the versions of this photo that I saw. And I saw a bunch of different versions, like people texted it to me. Yeah. I saw it online. I saw it in a bunch of files, but I never saw that CapCut. Did you have to have specialized equipment to see that?
No, I pulled this down from the actual, the Twitter post, or excuse me, X post. I pulled it down and was able to, it was right there. So I extracted this from that actual post. But one thing that's even more interesting here, you see how low resolution this is? Mm-hmm. You can't take a low resolution video and pull a high resolution clip. So that gentleman was claiming that these clips that I've spliced in, I found the exact spots where they would splice in, came from this video. So you see how that transitions so hard? Yeah. You know that blur to this?
Oh, yeah.
This video has been edited to death. So this actual movement in here, where you see it doing that, that's a CapCut transition. See these right here? These are all CapCut transitions. I could drag one into this video right here, and we can watch one. See it transition like that? That's all built in with this tool. This has been edited significantly. So in my expert opinion, I know this has been edited because we have editing software marks. But even these images right here, where we have those, I don't think you can trust these at all, because once again, there are plenty of reference images out there where you could pull her face smiling from the courtroom or other areas. And replacing these faces on here would be very simple to do if you know what you're doing. And there's generative AI tools that would allow to do it. I could do it by hand and it would look absolutely real. But this is kind of amateur looking work because you see how low resolution it is. What you do if you want to make is you take a high resolution something, you edit it up, and then you make it low resolution so you can't see the tool marks. You can't see the details. That is what we have here.
Interesting. Lars Daniel, I'm so glad you do what you do and that you would take the time to be with me on a Friday night to tell everybody watching they've been duped. Thank you so much for this. I'm going to call you back many times.
Thanks for having me.
So it's interesting because ever since News Nation debunked this on Twitter, let me see if I can find it. On Twitter, the whole Karen Reed is guilty group, And when I say it like that, I'm not saying it to mock anybody. Like, if you genuinely believe Karen Reed is guilty, like I said, let's have a respectful conversation in the comments. You know, we don't need to stoop low. There's a lot of people who are on Twitter right now on both sides of the fence, who are using a lot of gross, sleazy tactics to that have nothing to do, like, just going really low, attacking people's family, like, just really gross stuff that just doesn't need to be said and has nothing to do with the case whatsoever. And at the end of the day, this is why we live in the country that we live in, because we are allowed to think and express what we think and feel in a public forum like this. And I know that that's a big um that's pretty much what Elon Musk bought Twitter for, is to allow that free speech. And I'm not going to get into the politics or anything like that. That's not what we're doing here. But that's why we live in this country, is because everybody's entitled to have their own opinion. And now everybody seems to be clinging to this statement that Iannetti had made during one of the earlier hearings. Jennifer Coffindaffer, who is allegedly ex FBI. I just find it so ironic, because half of these people who are like, and I'm going to say, there's the groups that are, I think Karen Reed is guilty, but I don't think there's enough evidence to convict her. Those Most of those people that I've had conversations with are pretty level-headed. Like, they agree the prosecution did not do a good job proving their case, and I think we can all agree on that. They didn't. They failed in that regard. And those are the people I'm cool with having a discussion with, because I know that you're looking at things level-headedly, and you feel, based on the evidence that you've seen, or based on maybe your own biases and my own biases, we come to our own decisions. This is how people form thoughts and opinions, right? But then you get people like Jennifer Coffindaffer, who like to play both sides of the fence, because on one hand, she's like anti Karen Reed, meaning anti, not I think Karen Reed is guilty, but anti Karen Reed. And then she'll go ahead and report on the Sandra Birchmore case, which is ironic because it involves a lot of the same key players. And it's just like the level of hypocrisy. It's like, on one hand, you believe there can be corrupt and dirty cops who can do bad things, and you don't believe in a conspiracy. But then on the other hand, you do. Like, it makes no sense to me. So this is a tweet that came out, and it was funny because Mark Betterow, he's a New York criminal defense attorney. He's been making the rounds on a lot of different shows. Highly recommend you follow him on Twitter. He doesn't have his own YouTube channel, but he appears on a lot of people's shows, and he clapped back pretty nicely. So yeah, again, highly recommend. So this is the original tweet that Coffindaffer. So now, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because the whole Alan Jackson canoodling, Karen Reed was debunked. Now everybody's got to jump on the other attorney, David Yannetti, who literally couldn't have been like if that man has skeletons in his closet, like, you're probably gonna have to dig super deep, because he just seems like a very lovely man. Not that everybody's perfect. Again, we don't want to put anybody on a pedestal. Nobody's perfect. We are all flawed humans, but still, like, he just seems like he's just so likable. And when you watch the trials and you rewatch him, even on cross-examination, the way that he speaks to and approaches these witnesses, even when they're being difficult, he's just a very lovely human. And you can just tell he really cares about his client. So this is what she's clinging on to. This is an article that came out by the Boston Globe a couple months ago. So you see February 3rd. Oh, no, excuse me. February 3rd? Am I reading this backwards? February 26th. I'm assuming that's February 3rd, 2022, which would make sense. She had no criminal intent. So this is what David Yannetti said. And earlier, when Karen Reed was first arrested and charged, I believe, very early on. This is what everybody's clinging on to. She had no criminal intent. When she hit him is the inference. I don't get that. His words spoke volumes then and now, but instead of taking the high road, falling on the mercy of the court and apologizing for her drunken indiscretion that resulted, like, you just hear like the hatred for this woman. This is a woman you don't even know. Like, what, why so visceral? That resulted in John O'Keefe's murder. Reed chose to blame innocent people. So again, not only is she I don't think Karen Reed is innocent or not guilty, but I also don't necessarily think that the full story has been told. I can respect that. But she's on the side of the McAlbert Mafia. All right, cool. Who have a history of drinking and driving and getting arrested and charged and getting into motor vehicle accidents. There's a history of that. There is. Who were friends and acquaintances and fellow officers who had absolutely nothing to do with Officer O'Keefe's death. Hat tip. Like, okay, so this is how Mark Betterow replied. Today, they have shifted their focus from Alan Jackson to Karen Reed's other stellar attorney, Davy Gannetti. That's exactly what they're doing because it's been proved as a deepfake. So now they have to go and attack her other attorney. When none of her, like nobody on her camp has come for Lally, as far as I know. Um, they have nothing left to do but attack defense team and try to create dissent. This from someone discussed by DA as a good vessel to disseminate their message. Yeah, exactly. And this is somebody who's supposed to be ex FBI. Like it's just so funny too. And again, these are the same people who are reporting on the Sandra Birchmore case, which I'm not going to pretend like I know everything, all the ins and outs of that case. That is a case I'm interested in exploring more and more as more and more news continues to develop. I know that it was recently ruled a homicide, so there is a deeper investigation that is going to be going on. So I will be following that as closely as I can. But what I do know is that there is the Canton police involved to an extent. Lank was involved. I think Proctor is involved. I know Guarino was involved. These are all the same people that, again, people who believe Karen Reed is innocent, people who believe she's not guilty are saying, so you're not going to buy into this conspiracy, which again, it's not a conspiracy, it's a cover up, right? That's what a lot of people believe, including myself, respectfully. But then on the other hand, you're going to say, "Oh my gosh, like what these police officers did to this woman is just awful." And it's this it's kind it's got the same key players, a lot of the same people. So, where is that hypocrisy? Is that you trying to play both sides of the fence? And I see Julie Grant reporting on this too from Court TV. And I think Julie Grant was actually doing a panel. I went to CrimeCon a couple of weeks back um, here in Nashville, and I believe she did a panel. I think it was her because I recognize the other guy. I don't know if it's her husband or not, but I'm not like super into Court TV anymore. Just after their coverage on this case, but they she did a panel with Hannah Gutierrez's lawyer from the Rust film case, and which I think is interesting. It's interesting to hear both sides of it, but the way that they conducted the panel just felt very overly sympathetic to Hannah. Um, Not really, even though she's been convicted, even though she's been convicted, I don't know a ton about that case, but I have heard some of the jailhouse calls, just the level of insensitivity to the actual victim who was killed on set when you're the armorer. Um, that's a case I'm looking to dig into more, but just the way that they were talking about the victim. Oh, it's a tragic incident, but there's got to be other people who can be accountable. Like poor like it gave off this very poor Hannah vibe, and for me, that was kind of disrespectful to the victim. And I don't know, it rubbed me the wrong way, especially because that was just a couple of weeks after those jailhouse call recordings were released. And those are pretty wicked. So I don't know. Any of you guys who have been following that case, please comment below. Let me know if that's something you want me to dig into. I know Alec Baldwin's going to be um, going to trial next week. I think it starts on the 9th. And then Hannah Gutierrez is also allegedly going to be testifying. So that'll be interesting. But yeah, ever since I saw that panel, it just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. And it kind of showed me an inside look of, okay, like, yes, there are biases even in obviously mainstream media, which I think it's so important for alternative news media and content creators and everybody. Everybody can be sharing this kind of news and expressing your thoughts, opinions. You don't need to be a journalist to do that. We all have the right to want to learn more. We all do. So that's why I always put up the disclaimer of I'm not an expert in anything. I just want to understand. I want to understand how all of this works. So God forbid if I'm ever in a situation like this, you guys are ever in a situation like this. But I'm not going to continue ranting because we have plenty of more stuff to go through. But I wanted to share that because it's just the level of irony with these people. They go from one thing to another, and then they think that nobody's watching, but we're all paying attention. We're all watching. So next thing that I want to pull up. So that was that. Let's go through this Paul O'Keefe interview. So I actually caught this a little bit last night on LTL's stream. Let's Talk Live. Highly recommend checking that channel out as well too. He's got a lot of really good coverage around this case. But this is where I first saw this interview with Paul O'Keefe, and this came out I think yesterday or the day before. So he's been on kind of like a press tour, and after watching this and the way he words certain things, it almost feels like, and I'm not trying to be insensitive, I'm really not, but it almost feels like he's kind of being Michael Morrissey's mouthpiece. Just the way that he describes certain things, and even comparing it to his interview from the other day. And I was thinking about this too with Christina Rex. I posted a video on that too. If you guys didn't check it out, I'll link it in the description below. But the way he brings up Proctor, and he talks about the federal investigation and how he wishes that Josh Levy never intervenes in this investigation. It just feels very Morrissey, or like somebody clearly had prepped him. And whether that was Lally, whether that was Morrissey and friends, I don't know, but it feels like it's got Morrissey written all over it. But that's just my opinion. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. And again, we're not here to drag Paul. At the end of the day, he lost a brother. And he lost his sister too. He lost a brother-in-law. He's clearly traumatized. And I do feel for him. And I think in a lot of ways, somebody called this out too in the comments section. And I think he's just suffering from kind of Stockholm syndrome, being told just so many times and so many lies, and you're just trying to justify everything in your brain and make it make sense. So I feel for him in a lot of ways, but I mean, it's like, do you want to hear the truth or not? Do you want to get as much information and get as close to the truth of what actually happened to your brother or not? Or are you afraid? And if you're afraid, that's okay, but then say it.
Be a group of people that are just, they're just never going to be convinced, and that's fine. And those are the people that are out there wearing their pink shirts and tailgating and
The pink
having a good
people,
old time.
guys.
Well, there's a murder trial going on inside the courthouse.
The brother of John O'Keefe speaking out tonight about Karen Read and her murder trial, which ended this week with a hung jury. Paul O'Keefe says his family is now done with keeping silent about the case.
Yeah, he spoke one-on-one with Newsletter 5's David Bienick, who joins us live outside the courthouse once again in Dedham. David, good evening.
Good evening, Ben. If you watched any of this 2-month-long trial, you saw a lot of Paul O'Keefe. He was directly in front of the courtroom camera, right behind Karen Read, and the expressions on his face often hinted at what he was thinking. Now he's putting his feelings into words. In 2013, Paul and John O'Keefe lost their sister Kristen to a brain tumor, and a few months later, Kristen's husband to a heart attack. And when John moved into their home in Canton and became the guardian of his young niece and nephew, Paul O'Keefe wasn't surprised.
People say, they would take the shirt off their back or do anything for anybody, but not many people don't get a chance to prove that. And he proved all of that.
O'Keefe says he met Karen Read in 2020, a few months after she and his brother rekindled an old relationship. He says the family became close with Read, but he wasn't convinced she was the one for his brother.
I mean, I don't know how to describe them, but I just didn't see it as a long-term relationship working out.
In January of 2022, when
Which is interesting because I don't know if he actually said that in his testimony. Do any of you guys remember that? I can pull up his testimony too, but I played it in my video the other day because a lot of the things that he says that appear to be more negative about Karen Read seem to only come through in these interviews. And I have to wonder, is it because now you're no longer under oath? I don't know if this is anything that could even be permissible in a future trial. Probably not. But I mean, I again, it's just interesting. I feel like his anger just deepens the more and more these days go on, and I can only think that it's because he's convinced himself that this is what happened.
Brother was found lying in a snowbank outside a home in Canton. Paul O'Keefe says at first he didn't know what to believe, but he says when he saw his brother's injuries, he immediately thought he'd been hit by a car. And a few hours later,
which I
when
have
Read
no idea.
left,
how do you
he became
put that
suspicious.
Together?
And it just kind of hit me, and I said, "Wow, yeah, she did do this."
Over the next 2.5 years, O'Keefe watched as Read and her defense attorneys started talking about an alternative theory that someone else had killed his brother, and police were framing her. The next 2.5 years, O'Keefe watched as Read and her defense attorneys started talking about an alternative theory that.
I mean, they make it seem like this was just something that randomly appeared, but there was a whistleblower, Steve Scanlon, who had gone to David Gannetti's office, and this is all reported. This has been reported by Turtleboy. So again, highly recommend you check out his coverage because he knows the case probably better than most. Aside from obviously the parties involved, but there was a whistleblower and this wasn't. I can't recall if this was like a few months after she was indicted or if it was a year, but the way that they're framing this almost feels like this is something that they've been like cooking up and like, just trying a theory that they're trying to convolute, and that's not really what happened. Somebody blew the whistle and said, "Hey, this is what happened." They went to David Gannetti's office. They said John was beat up inside the house and tossed outside. So whether or not you believe that, I would love to see a world where, I'm sure there's some kind of deal where he doesn't have to be called to testify to that. Maybe he's working with the feds. I don't know, but I would be curious. If anybody would be a star witness, it would be him. I think since he may have retracted his story, but I don't know why somebody would willingly go to the defendant's attorney's office and tell them this if they didn't feel somewhat of a guilty conscience. Again, this is what has been reported by Turtleboy. I can link to those articles for you guys if you want as well, but just thought I'd call that out because it just, again, the way that they're kind of framing things feels like this is something they've convoluted over like a long extended period of time, and that's just
Someone
not,
else had killed his brother, and police were framing her to cover it up.
It's stories, lies, innocent people's lives being ruined. I understand a aggressive defense strategy, but this is above and beyond anything ethical.
At the start of each of the 29 days of testimony,
what a moment to cut anything ethical. I mean, if we're going to talk about ethics, we're going to bring up your buddy Proctor, who you name dropped in your last interview. If we're going to talk about ethics, come on now, Paul. Come on now, Paul.
Paul O'Keefe led his family into the courtroom. He says he purposely took the same seat just a few feet away from Karen Reed and directly in front of the courtroom
when
camera.
he talks about
Nobody really wanted that first seat. I'll take the camera on me. But also, I wanted Karen to know that I'm here and I'm not going anywhere and I'm going to be here every day.
Paul O'Keefe had known Karen.
So, like, is that kind of intimidation? Like, you purposely sitting there, and then, don't forget too, closing arguments, who was sitting right behind him? Brian Albert, who was like doing weird stuff with his mouth. Jen McCabe, Carrie Roberts. I didn't even know Carrie Roberts was there. I didn't even see her in frame. Colin Albert. Like, I mean, are you not admitting like you were sitting there to kind of intimidate her? So then, like, when she's turning around and allegedly smirking at you, like, again, it make this stuff make sense. It's like you're opening yourself up for that, and you're trying to be like, yeah, I want you to see me, I want you to look at me, I want you to know that I'm there. But then if she turns around towards you, also because one, the projection screen that's showing the exhibits is in the same direction, and also her attorney is sitting right there. If she is turning that way, it's likely because she's either looking at the exhibits, paying attention to what's going on in her case because she's being tried for murder. I'd be paying attention too. And her attorney, who she's consulting with throughout the trial. So if there are any smirked, or maybe you're interpreting certain facial expressions, again, from what I've seen, what's been reported, if you guys see anything different, I'm always open to being called out. If I'm wrong on something and you have the receipts to back it up, call me out. Happy to do it. Again, keep it respectful. But I'm happy. I'm happy to open my mind up. But from what I saw, there was nothing in that court. There was no, I mean, the whole thing was filmed. And what's been reported from the reporters that have been inside the courtroom was that they never once noticed Karen directly turning to Paul and intentionally smirking or mocking him. Anything. What about Peggy O'Keefe? What about Peggy O'Keefe mocking David Gennady? When Proctor was reading out text and stuff and about making fun of David Gennady with his buddies, what about that? So you can't have it both ways, Paul.
Reed since 2020 when she rekindled an old relationship with his brother. John, a Boston police officer. In 2022, Reed was charged with killing John O'Keefe by backing into him with her SUV. And during the trial, Paul O'Keefe says he watched Reed and saw things that the camera missed.
A lot of laughing, joking, smiling. Didn't look like someone who was on trial for second-degree murder of a person she supposedly loved.
O'Keefe says he never believed Reed.
I mean, I just feel like if I believe I'm being framed for murder, And I'm sitting in trial and, like, you know, I feel like nothing seems to be going my way. The smirking, the laughing, that you have to find some light moments in all of this chaos. And there were moments in that courtroom where the whole courtroom was laughing about, like, a little comment here that, you know, maybe Bev made or Yannetti made or Jackson made. None that Lally made, because Lally's the friggin' dial tone and has no, I don't think he has any sense of humor whatsoever in his body. But, like, I can see why he would get, you know, a little angry, like, you know, "My brother here, my brother's dead, like, you know, why aren't you more visibly upset?" And it's just hard to, grief is experienced in so many different ways, and that's something that I've learned in just absorbing all these different cases and listening to all these other stories from all these other, you know, not just beyond this trial, other trials, when listening to 911 calls. I mean, it's just so hard to know, if you've never been through it yourself, what, you know, you stumble in and you see the person you love just gone. I can't imagine what that would be like. I don't know how I would process it. There's no right answer. So I can understand his frustration, but at the same time, again, it's just, Paul, that's not necessarily evidence.
Reed's defense story that someone else killed his brother and that police were framing her to cover it up. He says he was disappointed to see crowds of Reed supporters outside the courthouse each day. During closing arguments, he invited some of the people the defense had tried to implicate in his brother's death
I
to sit
mean,
with him.
can we just look at Jen McCabe?
Closing arguments, he invited
Right?
some of the people the
Can we
defense had
just
tried
look
to
at Jen McCabe?
implicate in it.
I mean, that's a scary mother. That's a scary mother. Like, that's terrifying. Now, I've made the mistake of being attracted to not women, like women with that personality type, when you see like those crazy eyes. And again, I'm not here to drag people for their looks, but I mean, that's the devil. Like, what a blank stare. I mean, you don't see Jen McCabe crying. You didn't see Jen McCabe crying on the stand, did you? Look at Ryan Albert. Look at him. He looks like, there was a tweet I saw there. He looks like the guy from, what's that Christmas movie with the, not with the stick figures, but you know what I'm talking about. If I can find it, I'll definitely tweet it out, but oh my god, man. Wait, I gotta see. I might have it actually saved and bookmarked. It's very possible. 'Cause, I mean, it's too good. It's too good. I bookmark a lot of stuff. Also, before I forget to, Microdots just released a new video. Highly recommend you check his video out. It's like a what you might have missed in the trial. I can't find it. I might have retweeted it. It's just very funny. If I can find it. I mean, this is just so good. Like, he looks like this guy. You know this guy, right? The snowman from what's that movie that we watched that used to haunt our freaking dreams as kids? Like, yeah, that's what he looks like. Except this guy looks friendlier. Like, this guy looks like he knows where to hide a dead body. In my opinion. In my opinion. And that's why I love too, like, when people come at, not me. All of you guys are amazing. You guys are really cool, very respectful, and I appreciate you keeping it respectful in the comments section. But a lot of these people, when they talk about, oh, like, you know how many people like would have to keep a secret, like how hard it would be to to get all of these people in on it and keeping the story consistent. These are cops. These are cops. They're not just run of the mill regular people. Their job is to investigate criminals, to think like a criminal so they can catch the criminals. So yeah, I can buy, if anybody would know how to cover up something like this, it would be police. It would be somebody with some kind of law enforcement background. No? Like, is that so outlandish to say? If anybody knows how to cover it up, it would be people who have a law enforcement background. Now, of course, I'm not saying all cops are like that. There are plenty of great cops in the world, and I want to believe that, and I know it's true. I know it's true because this has to be a small percentage. This has to be a small percentage of just rotten eggs. But it's not impossible. It's not so outlandish that it could just never happen. I just find that hilarious. Like, I do. I find it kind of like ironic.
His brother's death to sit with his family.
It was just our way of saying, you know, we don't believe in any of this stuff.
I'm declaring a mistrial in this case.
After the judge declared a mistrial, O'Keefe says Reed turned and smirked at his wife, Erin. Then, as Reed turned and hugged her father, O'Keefe passed by her and says he told her this.
I just walked by her and I said, you know, you're not done yet. That's all.
Paul O'Keefe says his family is now waiting for Karen Reed's second trial, perhaps within the next 5 to 6 months, he believes, as well as the results of a federal investigation that's been going on for more than.
I think a retrial is gonna. I think Mark Betterow said it would take. They have to do it within a year. I don't see it happening that quickly. And I mean, if it does happen, and it does happen soon, like, again, who's going to be on the witness list? I would love to hear from Paul O'Keefe's father, John O'Keefe's dad. What does he think about all this? I would love to hear from him. Maybe not in testimony. I don't, again, what could he really, add for or not for the defense or Commonwealth? I mean, I don't know, but I'd just be curious. I mean, he seems to be, and Paul has said this too, his dad's a pretty private person. But I'm surprised Peggy's not out there like clamor, doing these interviews. But I think it's, again, is this Morrissey? Is this Morrissey? Now, I feel like this interview was a little less damning than the other one in terms of just, again, certain language, certain things he used. But I think it's because this was a much shorter segment. I'd be curious if he does. I'm sure they're going to do like a Dateline or something like that. I know Karen's already done, I think, a Dateline or a Nightline, and that was over a year ago, I believe. But now what I want to transition to is the letters. The letters. Now there's some context that we need to go through so you have a deeper understanding of these players. But pretty much last year around I think the first letter was May 9th. When first contact was made between the feds and the DA's office. And District Attorney Michael Morrissey, again, I created a video going through his statement that he made a little while ago about, how this is all BS and, Colin is innocent and Colin wasn't in the house and it's got to stop and all that. So I can link to that again in my description if you guys want to check that out. But to give you a deeper understanding, so this video was dropped about 7 months ago, and I think this is when the letters became public. I just got to pull it up in a separate tab. So this is Ted Daniel reporting on it. He's been covering this case very closely. And then we're going to jump to a couple of articles, again, just to give you some deeper context about who some of these people are. When we're going through the letters, you'll have a better understanding of what the animosity might be between Michael Morrissey and the U.S. Attorney's office. So let's just gotta wait for this. Get off commercial.
Do have the power to investigate the investigators.
Again, this is Ted Daniel. This is Boston 25.
Sources tell me this probe is being run by the U.S. Attorney's Public Corruption Unit in Boston. And we've learned the Norfolk County DA is privately pushing back. April 12th, Karen Reed's lawyers announced a dramatic turn in her murder case. They claim new evidence establishes her innocence in the death of her Boston police officer boyfriend, John O'Keefe. Pointing the finger at witnesses in this case. One of the relatives who was inside the party Googled how long to die in cold.
Because remember, the defense had to fight to get those cell records. They had to fight to get that. Otherwise, like, if they didn't get that, we wouldn't know. We wouldn't know about that Google search. We wouldn't. So
it would be the first time the public would hear allegations of cover-up, but not the U.S. Attorney's Office. 2 days before, on April 10th, a federal grand jury issued subpoenas to people connected to the case, according to a source with direct knowledge of the proceedings. Reed's attorney, Alan Jackson, briefly referenced the probe at a hearing for Reed in May.
But Karen Reed should not.
And look at his hairline here. Just going back to that deep fake photo, like I think the deep fake photo had his hairline like all the way back here. It's just like abundantly clear. It was a fake photo. Sorry.
Have to wait for the feds to figure out which heads should roll.
Multiple sources tell 25 Investigates the U.S. Attorney's Office is examining local and state law enforcement's handling of the Reed case. And 2 FBI agents have been questioning people in and around Canton and reviewing documents from the Norfolk DA's office and the Canton Police Department.
They're not looking into the specific murder itself. I think that's the misconception a lot of people get. They're not investing.
And that's a great point. That's a great point. So they're not looking in the murder. They're just looking to see if there was any misconduct that was done in the investigation, which again ties into, is this fair to try this case when the investigation was shoddy from the beginning? Again, without getting political, this goes way deeper than just a group of friends drinking one night and, things getting out of hand and John O'Keefe ending up getting pulverized inside the Albert House and tossed like trash on his front lawn. It goes deeper than that. This is political. This is all politically driven. And this is why I wanted to start by saying, it feels like it's the Morrissey press tour and him trying to do damage control. Again, I don't think they expected a mistrial. I think they expected a guilty verdict. I don't know how. I don't think they were prepared for that. And then they're like, all right, well, we got to do something about Proctor, at least for now, until the July 22nd date, which is just more of, hey, what do you got? What are you doing? Are we going to be doing this again? That's what that's for. So again, it's important to stress that this isn't them looking into the murder of John O'Keefe. This is them digging into whether or not this investigation was professionally conducted.
Investigating the murder, they're investigating the investigation of the murder.
Evan Gottlob is a former federal prosecutor who worked public corruption cases in Boston. Sources tell 25 Investigates multiple people identified by police as witnesses in the Reed case have testified before the federal grand jury.
Would the U.S. Attorney's Office begin a public corruption investigation on a hunch?
Usually there's a tip from somebody. The federal government could be looking into possible corruption in the police department, possible obstruction of justice in the investigation, those sort of things.
Innuendo is not evidence.
25
There you
Investigates
go.
has learned Norfolk.
Here's the man of the hour. I can't. Yeah, again, I'm not like, I don't want to make fun of people's looks. I don't want to be that person. But the way he talks, he just sounds like he has a chronic like cold, Michael Morrissey. And if you are corrupt and you are up to something fishy, sir, then yeah, you're gonna get dragged. You're gonna get dragged. So, and he knows it.
DA Michael Morrissey believes he's being targeted.
The accent.
According to two sources, Morrissey sent a letter to DOJ headquarters in Washington requesting that the federal probe be transferred out of Massachusetts. In the letter, Morrissey alleges Rachael Rollins, who was the U.S. attorney when the probe began, held a personal grudge against.
So, who is Rachael Rollins? Rachael Rollins, as I just said, she was a former U.S. attorney. When the federal investigation began, it was when Rachael Rollins was in office. So what we're going to read when we go through the letters is going to bring up Rachael Rollins' name. So again, that's why I wanted to give you the context.
Him. Morrissey argues that is a conflict of interest, according to our sources. Rollins resigned on May 19th following two scathing government watchdog group reports accusing her of abusing her authority and committing multiple ethical violations.
We know Morrissey's letter exists because the DA's office was forced to acknowledge it when they denied our public records request for it.
Their written response says the letter contains confidential personal information, privileged attorney work product, and is connected to an ongoing criminal investigation.
Is it possible the feds would get involved in a case because of a grudge?
No, I would hope not. That's not the job. The job is to do justice.
Gottlob says public corruption investigations typically take 2 to 4 years for a resolution. If no criminal activity is found, he says the feds aren't obligated to do or say anything.
You won't hear anything about it. I'm pretty sure anybody in the U.S. Attorney's Office that's looking into it knows how important it is to get this right based on the interest on both sides of this matter.
Sources tell us Morrissey's conflict of interest letter to the DOJ also references a former assistant DA who used to work in his office. In the letter, Morrissey says she is married to a high-ranking federal prosecutor in the public corruption unit. 25 Investigates has petitioned the Secretary of State's office to force the Norfolk DA to turn over the letter. We also tried to reach out to Rachael Rollins, but did not hear back. For 25 Investigates, I'm Ted Daniel.
So there you have it. There you have it. There's that little bit of drama between Rachael Rollins and Michael Morrissey. So now we're going to go bring up this article that Turtleboy wrote a little while ago. I got to let my cat out. Cat out of the bag. When did he write this? He wrote it December 5th, excuse me. And that clip that we just played was from 7 months ago. So, what, 7 months? Yeah, probably shortly thereafter he reported on this. So, I'm going to let my cat out, but then I'll be back on. Okay. All right. So, this is... I gotta log into my account. Hold on. So there's no ads. One moment, please. Log in. I think I use this. Yeah, pause it for a second. Sorry, y'all. I didn't want you like staring at my face as I was trying to figure out how technology works. So there we go. Okay. So yeah, this is the article that Turtleboy wrote on December 5th. And again, it's just recapping what we just watched in that video, but he digs in a little bit deeper about the first assistant or the assistant that used to work in Morrissey's office as well too. So Michael Morrissey asked to speak with DOJ manager to stop investigation into his office because Rachael Rollins criticized him one time. So again, this is the clip we just watched. Quick recap. Again, federal investigation began before the Free Karen Read movement was launched on April 18th, because everybody likes to tie in Turtleboy with Karen Read pretty much infiltrating with Turtleboy, and that's how all of this came to be. Public Corruption Unit is conducting investigation. April 10th, grand jury issued subpoenas, which we knew already after our story in August about Colin Albert being served with a subpoena in his Bridgewater State dorm room on April 10th. U.S. Attorney's Office has been investigating local law enforcement's handling of the case. 2 FBI agents have been questioning people in and around Canton and reviewing documents from NCDAO and Canton Police Department, which we've reported, yada, yada, yada. Multiple people identified by police as witnesses have testified in front of the federal grand jury. U.S. Attorney began investigation based on a tip, which we've reported on, including Jennifer McCabe, Brian Albert, Colin Albert, Allie McCabe, Caitlin Albert, and Brian Albert Jr. Michael Morrissey sent a letter to the DOJ asking that the federal probe be transferred out of Massachusetts because Rachael Rollins held a personal grudge against him, which is a conflict of interest. So that is what I really want to focus around. And these other bullet points here as well too, because he directly addresses it in one of the letters that we are going to, which I missed the first time reading it through, honestly, because I was like, I have no idea. I'm not from Massachusetts. I don't, I'm not deep into politics, but this is what I mean by this. This is more than just investigating the crime of an officer, the murder of an officer. It's about politics and power. That's always what it boils down to, in my opinion. NCDAO admitted the letter existed because they opposed its release to Boston 25 News. That was a clip we just watched. Due to confidential personnel information, privileged attorney work product, and is connected to an ongoing criminal investigation, which Ted Daniel just reported on. Former U.S. Attorney Evan Gottlob, who worked public corruption cases in Boston before leaving for private practice in April 2023, claims the feds wouldn't get involved due to a personal grudge, again, which we just saw in the clip, and that it can take up to 2 to 4 years. So if this investigation started, before April 18th, I mean, we're only about a year in or so, right? So we're at least looking at another year, and I can't imagine with the federal investigation going on, only more and more is going to come to light. So I don't see how this thing is going to trial a second time. I really just don't. But let me know what you think. Conflict of interest letter also references a former ADA who used to work in his office who is married to a high-ranking federal prosecutor in the public corruption unit. As Ted Daniel pointed out, it's standard for the DA's office to object to public record requests on ongoing cases that they are investigating, but when they're the ones being investigated, the argument doesn't apply. So they cancel each other out. 25 Investigates has positioned Secretary of State William Galvin's office to force the Norfolk DA to release the letter. Again, that's everything that Ted Daniel just said. The DA's office can make a claim to withhold their investigative techniques, but that argument is irrational when they are not the investigators. The most important thing we learned from this is that Michael Morrissey asked for the U.S. Attorney's Office to stop investigating his office months ago due to a conflict. So again, a personal conflict, which is so funny because it seems like this case is just full of personal connections or loose acquaintances and conflicts. I mean, it's like, is this even about finding justice for John O'Keefe. I don't know. It is beyond ironic that the NCDAO suddenly cares about conflicts of interest when they continue to employ Michael Proctor again as their lead investigator. Yep. Glaring conflicts between, again, with the Alberts and the McCabe's. So this is just, kind of Turtleboy's thoughts, opinions, feedbacks. Rollins resigned in May, but the witnesses were called in front. So May of 23 were called in front of the grand jury in July and August. So again, just to backtrack, everybody gets subpoenaed, or Colin Albert at least gets subpoenaed. Oh no, all right. I guess everybody got subpoenaed, but specifically Colin Albert on April 10 gets subpoenaed. In April, Rachael Rollins pieces out May 23, so a month later. And then 2 months later, they're called in front of the grand jury in July and August. Does Morrissey also believe that the new U.S. attorney, Joshua Levy, has a conflict of interest with him? Like, why pick up where your predecessor left off if it really is something that is a personal grudge? I just don't see why he would make that his first priority, unless he didn't think that there was something fishy going on. Norfolk County, Massachusetts is not sovereign and did not secede from the Union. For Morrissey to suggest that they have no business investigating his office is laughable and baseless. Massachusetts is a state in the Union. The U.S. Attorney's Office exists to investigate public corruption in the individual states. Yep. This is a states' rights argument similar to what southern states would argue in order to defy court orders to desegregate during the civil rights movement. So, a little bit more context, Ian Carney used to be a history teacher, so he has a pretty deep understanding about how the United States government has evolved over the many hundreds of years. Even if Rollins was behind the investigation, she's not, according to Turtleboy. And even if she did have a personal grudge with Morrissey, it's not grounds to stop the investigation. It's fair to say that Morrissey and his state. So again, he brings up a good point. Like, even if this was kickstarted for the wrong reasons, maybe, just maybe, Josh Levy was like, yeah, but something still doesn't feel right. So I'm going to continue what you started, even if it wasn't for the right reasons. And I hope that wasn't the case. I hope this was done with the utmost integrity. But, again, it's like, who do you even trust anymore? This stuff. It's really hard, guys. It's fair to say that Morrissey and his state police investigators have a personal grudge with me, which isn't stopping them from charging me with 9 felonies. Okay, so that goes into Aiden's case. Rollins' personal grudge with Morrissey seems to revolve around. Okay, so this is the meat and potatoes of what he is mad about. Around an incident in July of 2020 when she was Suffolk County DA, and Morrissey and the 3 other Massachusetts DAs tried to insert themselves in a Suffolk Superior Court case. At stake was whether or not it was constitutional to sentence an 18-year-old to life without parole for his role in a murder when his co-defendant, who actually pulled the trigger, had the chance of parole after 15 years due to the fact that he was 1 week shy of his 18th birthday. This sort of criminal justice reform was typical of Rollins when she was a DA, and the 4 other DAs, including Morrissey, tried to insert themselves into the case, claiming that it could lead to the release of dangerous felons in their counties who were sentenced to life without parole. But what about looking in your own backyard, dude? What about looking in your own backyard? The Supreme Judicial Court ended up agreeing with Rollins and did not allow Morrissey a chance to participate. I mean, it's like, dude, get out. You're in Norfolk. Like, I mean, agree or disagree, but I mean, what role do you really have? That's not, I don't know, jurisdiction's the right, but that's not your area. That's not your territory. You got your own county to worry about, buddy. The Supreme Judicial Court ended up agreeing with Rollins, like I just said, and did not allow Morrissey a chance to participate in an evidentiary hearing in Suffolk County. This led to Rollins doing what she always does, accusing the four white male DAs of being sexist and racist. So again, it gets into like a whole other political issue. I'm not going to comment on any of that stuff because, one, I don't know anything about this case specifically. But I mean, I think it's interesting of misogyny for inserting themselves. I mean, maybe not in the sense of this case. Again, I don't know anything about this case, so I'm not going to comment. But if we're going to talk about misogyny, let's look at Michael Proctor, right? Right, Morrissey's buddy. So yeah, there's all that. Michael Morrissey isn't special because Rollins inferred that he was racist and or sexist. She literally does it to everybody. Yeah, so again, it just goes deeper. So, giving you context for the letters. So now we're getting into this. Morrissey sent a letter to the highest levels of the DOJ in Washington complaining about Rollins and specifically cited public comments made about him by Rollins. Morrissey sent a letter to, again, yep, that's the same thing. A source said Morrissey referenced public comments made by Rollins that are critical of him. So the only public comments she ever made about Morrissey were the ones she made about Morrissey's attempted intervention into a Suffolk County Superior Court matter. So again, about the case we just talked about. Now, ironically, he's upset that she allegedly used the powers of her office to intervene into a Norfolk County Superior Court matter, except the U.S. Attorney's Office. So now he's mad because he's like, oh, well, you didn't let me participate in that case, but now you're coming into my backyard and sniffing around here. What the F? That's what he's saying. Except the U.S. Attorney's Office has jurisdiction, over Norfolk County because it's part of the United States of America, whereas the Norfolk County DA has no jurisdiction in Suffolk County matters because they are completely separate entities. So there you have it. Does that mean it's right or not? I don't know. I don't live in Massachusetts, man. This isn't a personal grudge either. It's just it's just politics. It's politics. That this whole case is politics. It's not about, and when people say like, does John O'Keefe get lost in all of this? Yes and no. I mean, I think people who are out there working hard every day to help and support Karen Reed do genuinely believe in getting justice for John O'Keefe. I mean, I know I personally do. I would love to find out the truth because I don't think what was done to him, not even just his untimely death, but like how the investigation was conducted. It's just like that final spit in the face. And I expect better of law enforcement personally, even if we're going to cut out all the extra noise and drama, right? If we're just looking at the investigation and how it was conducted, that's enough to get my blood boiling. The solo cups, the Stop and Shop bags, the leaf blowers, Michael Proctor never once going to the crime scene until days later when pieces of taillight started to reveal themselves. Never once going into Brian Albert's home, not recording any of the interviews, the lack of chain of custody, the seizing of Karen Reed's phone, the seizing of her car without having a warrant, the mishandling of evidence, I mean, there's just, the list goes on and on and on and on, and that is more than enough to get my blood boiling. But all this to say, again, Aiden brings up a good point. It's just politics. It's all this is. It's just politics. District attorneys are elected officials, and Rollins is a much more progressive Democrat than Morrissey, because Morrissey, again, he's part of the Democratic Party. Of course, they were going to have political and ideological disagreements on matters involving criminal justice reform. again, not to call out the obvious, but she's a woman. Two, she is a woman of color, and Michael Morrissey is an older white man. So they're coming from two different sides of the cloth. Anyone appointed to U.S. attorney would have something in their past, which again, yeah. So there's that. He's gonna go into some other stuff related to Rollins, but I just wanted to go over that just to give you some context before we go into the letters. If you want to read that whole article, I'm more than happy to link it. Again, Turtleboy does a really good job of just investigative journalism. Some people think he's super extreme. Some people don't like him. I don't agree with all of his politics. I don't agree with, some of the things he says or does. But at the end of the day, I think he's a great reporter. And I think in terms of covering this case, he's spot on. He's spot on. That's just my opinion. So take that with a grain of salt. That said, let's get into the letters. So some of these are out of order. I don't know. When I downloaded them, this is the order that they downloaded in. It seems like it starts at most recent. So January 12, you'll see here. So this is from Joshua Levy. And then this is from to Bev. But then it kind of jumps back to May 18th, and then it kind of jumps all over the place. So I'm gonna do my best to get everything in order and read it. I think this is the first one, but I just want to double check to June 12, October 12. And again, I'm not a legal expert. If any of y'all are, and you've been following this case and you want to come on the show, I'm more than happy to. I know a couple of you have expressed that you'd love to see some guests come on, and I would love to have guests. I would love to have experts to just help us understand more of some of the verbiage and what's going on here from a legal perspective. So if you have an attorney too that you want to see come on the show, I know we're a super small channel, so it'll be a little hard getting guests on right now. But if you have anybody in mind, please don't harass them. Please don't. But if there's anybody that you're interested in me having on, please let me know. You can email me at Alexa's roommate. That's just one M, so ALEXASROOMATE at gmail.com. It's in the description. You can email me, send me an intro. That'd be great. Or if you were an expert yourself and you want to, feel free to drop me a line. So, or leave a comment. Okay, so let's dive in. Can I get this in full screen? I guess not. Okay, so this is May 29, and this is from the Commonwealth, right? So this isn't even like directly to the U.S. attorney. So this is after, again, remember Rollins retired, I guess is the right word. Retired in May 2023. So this is she probably retired May 1st, I'd imagine. This is to the first assistant. Okay, so you're going to see a lot of communication like this between the first assistant and the DA's office and the first assistant to Levy. I write to follow up on our conversations regarding the issuance of federal grand jury subpoenas to at least 2 witnesses to the Commonwealth's investigation into the death of John O'Keefe. So likely Colin Albert. I don't know who the other witness subpoena was. As you know, indictments have issued in Norfolk Superior Court and the prosecution is ongoing. See Commonwealth versus Karen Reed. As a prosecuting agency, the Norfolk District Attorney's Office has a constitutional duty to provide the defendant with exculpatory evidence. The obligation of Massachusetts to provide exculpatory information pursuant to Brady versus Maryland. So they're pulling out the Brady laws. I know one of you guys commented about that, about Proctor. And it's progeny means not only the constitutional obligation to disclose exculpatory information, but also the broad obligation under our rules to disclose any facts that would tend to exculpate. Excuse me. Sorry if I'm like stuttering. I'm just trying to read it. It's very tiny wording, and I'm blind. Blind meaning I have trouble seeing sometimes on my computer screen. The defendant or tend to diminish his or her culpability. In the matter of a grand jury investigation, 485 Massachusetts 641-649-2020. Under the Massachusetts Rules of Criminal Procedure, mandatory discovery includes all facts of an exculpatory nature and all statements of witnesses. So pretty much like we want to know everything y'all got. That's what I interpret it as, is we have the right to get any kind of information that has been to provide the defendant. To effectuate our discovery obligations, we are requesting at the earliest possible opportunity discovery of all statements of witnesses to the investigation of the death of John O'Keefe and resulting prosecution, including both statements to investigators and grand jury minutes. The Commonwealth also has the duty at the time we become aware that statements of witnesses exist. So they're saying, yeah, well, we realize, we acknowledge that we have a duty to also share anything that we got as well too. To notify the defendant of items under Rule 14 that the prosecutor knows to exist but are not within the care, custody, or control of the prosecution. So I don't know if it was Rule 14 or a different rule, but I do remember during the actual trial on voir dire day with the federal witnesses, the ARCA guys, the crash daddies as we know and love, I don't know if that was a violation of Rule 14. I don't remember. Can any of you guys double back and let me know? But again, the failure to notify both parties have to know what's going on. What do you got? So I can properly prepare my case. That the prosecutor knows to exist but are not within the care, custody, or control of the prosecution, to provide all information known as to the item's location and the identity of the persons possessing that item. See mass crime, crim P 14A, yada, 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 Commonwealth versus Mitchell. We appreciate the sensitivity and need for discretion as to any ongoing federal investigation while we are unaware of the parameters of federal activities. So they're like, we don't know what you guys are doing. We cannot forego our constitutional or state duties. So we're going to keep going despite what you're doing. We are willing to file a motion for a protective order under Mass R. Crim to request limitation of the disclosure of the information to defense counsel only. Any decision of such request, of course, is solely within the authority of the Norfolk Superior Court judge. Okay, even though, as we just read, the Suffolk County Superior Court has jurisdiction in Norfolk. Similarly, we are willing to facilitate the process or to request under federal or crim P for authorization from a federal district court judge for production of the grand jury minutes and related material, if any. Additionally, this office has constitutional and state obligations to provide exculpatory information, of which we are aware in all cases, including exculpatory information. How many times are they going to say exculpatory? Dang. Relating to all witnesses and or members of the prosecution. But this would include any investigations into misconduct related to professional duties. If any such information exists, it is imperative that we learn of it in a timely manner. So if there's anything that you guys find, please let us know as soon as possible, because we need to, not that we're going to do anything about it, but we want to know. In sum, while we appreciate the notification that the subpoena is issued, it is imperative that at the earliest opportunity, we are able to provide discovery to the defendant. So pretty much what they're saying, and I saw there's a clip that lawyer, he covered this, Peter Tragos. I'll link that video as well too, because he can give like a really good legal perspective on what this information means. But pretty much the reason that Peter and his father, who were both attorneys in Florida, the reason why they added in this extra line is, we appreciate this, but we need to know what you have on us as soon as possible so that we can provide this to the defense team. So making it seem like the real reason why they want to actually learn this information is um, eh, to give the defense the notification, give them all the information they need, instead of just snooping around and seeing what they got. So, this is June 1. Let me see. So that was May 9. Oh, that was May 9. Okay, August 3, June 21st. You see how it kind of like skips it around? It's so weird. This is the one we just read. This might be the next one, actually. The June one. Oh, no, May 18. Okay. Yep. May 18. Okay. So then this is to the Office of Professional Responsibility. So just backing up a little bit. This was first to the U.S. Attorney. But now, after only 9 days, so not a little over a week, he reaches out to the Office of Professional Responsibility. Reinvestigation by the Office of the United States Attorney for the District of Massachusetts. Dear Sir or Madam, I write to formally request that an ongoing investigation being conducted by the United States Attorney's Office for the District of Massachusetts be examined by the Office of Professional Responsibility, and should the investigation continue, that it be transferred to another office without history of conflict, bias, and abuse of prosecutorial discretion as outlined below. So this is exactly what we just covered, the whole conflict of interest between him and Rachael Rollins, because she was the one who allegedly first kickstarted this federal investigation. The Norfolk District Attorney's Office has undertaken an extensive investigation into the facts and circumstances of the death of John O'Keefe in Canton, Massachusetts on January 29th, 2022. Facts and evidence gathered, including more than 40 individuals testifying before the Norfolk County Grand Jury, led to the second-degree murder indictment of Karen Reed, was the operator of the vehicle that the evidence demonstrates struck her boyfriend, Boston Police Officer John O'Keefe. O'Keefe was then left to die in the snow on the side of Fairview Road, which is also kind of weird, on the side of Fairview Road, on the front lawn, during the evening of January 29, 2022. The case has been systematically making its way through Norfolk Superior Court, with ongoing discovery still active and open, including motions under advisement and motions not yet heard. The defendant, through counsel, has been raising specious issues of a third-party culprit and complaints of witnesses and police misconduct as they attempt to confuse by offering not different interpretations of Commonwealth statements, evidence, and positions, but inventing them out of whole cloth. So this is exactly the same kind of language that Morrissey used in his little, it wasn't like a press conference, but that weird, recorded statement that he made that we saw, in my last video, or one of my last videos. No actual substantiated evidence supporting police misconduct or any federal violations have been identified by the defendant, the district attorney's office, or the Massachusetts Superior Court during the ongoing discovery process. See Exhibit A, defendant filings and Commonwealth's response. Approximately 3 weeks ago, multiple state witnesses who have been brought before the state grand jury notified the Norfolk District Attorney's Office that they were contacted by the FBI and subsequently received subpoenas to appear before a federal grand jury. Shortly after those notifications to the Norfolk District Attorney's Office, Joshua Levy, first assistant in the Boston office of the United States Attorney's Office, contacted Norfolk First Assistant District Attorney Lynn Bayland to suggest that they were conducting an investigation that may involve a number of witnesses in the Commonwealth versus Reed murder case. So that was the first letter we read. That was to the first assistant. At the time, Attorney Bayland expressed some concerns about both the jurisdiction and timing of any actions being taken by the United States Attorney's Office, as they could imprudently impact the ongoing murder prosecution of Karen Reed. Based on the collective experience of several of my colleague Massachusetts district attorneys and a former federal prosecutor, it appears to be unprecedented for the federal government to step into the middle of an ongoing state murder prosecution prompted only by inflammatory and ethically dubious defense strategy. So he's pretty much saying they're just making it up. Why are they trying to get in the way of this? Which just feels very defensive. And you're just trying to use all this flowery language for no reason to make yourself seem smart. In the conversation with the first assistant Norfolk District Attorney Lynn Bayland, do you have to say the whole thing? Assistant United States Attorney Joshua Levy declined to identify what jurisdiction the federal government had in the murder case. In what appears to be a highly unusual and possibly abusive exercise of power, Attorney Levy indicated that the U.S. Attorney's Office was still proceeding ahead with an investigation that would involve individuals who were active participants in events and or witnesses in the state case. Attorney Bayland reminded AUSA Joshua, okay, so now he's abbreviating it, Joshua Levy, I think it's Levy, not Levy, that any statements or testimony taken in such an investigation that pertain to any of the witnesses in the ongoing state murder trial may create an ongoing obligation for state prosecutors to provide defense with access to all the information and statements gathered or recorded as a result of the federal investigation. The United States Attorney offered the opinion that you can't turn over information that you don't have. This position leaves state authorities potentially unable to meet the constitutional mandate expressed in Brady versus Maryland, which he included in the first letter, corresponding Massachusetts state's rules. Since that call concluded, okay, so I guess there was a phone call, we have confirmed that witnesses have testified before the grand jury. Rule 6 of the Federal Rules of Criminal Procedure allows that under certain compelling circumstances, information may be provided to all counsel, including those not before the federal grand jury. See Exhibit B letter. Recent court filings and statements by defense counsel in the Reed matter suggest that defense attorneys weren't the source of the initial complaint and allegations prompting this action by the U.S. Attorney's Office. So it's almost like he's saying this wasn't concocted by the defense. Matter suggests, we're the source. Excuse me, I'm misspeaking. We're the source of the initial complaint. Okay, got it backwards. And allegations prompting the action. Okay, so that was something that the defense had concocted. Reed's, which is funny because, again, it doesn't make sense. On one hand, you're saying this is the U.S. attorney trying to pull one over on me, but at the same time, you're kind of saying this is concocted by the defense. So, which is it, dude? What is it? And you think we're crazy. Conspiracies. Reed's defense counsel's recent court filings raise out of thin air and apparently purposeful misstatement of fact, unsupported claims of a cover-up by investigators and witnesses, including municipal, state, and federal law enforcement. As shown in attached documents, many or all of the unsupported allegations can be vetted and reviewed by the judges in the Massachusetts Superior Court during the discovery and motion sessions or available appellate review. This looks like it got cut off. I am unaware, I think that's what that says, and strongly doubt any prosecutor or state police misconduct okay, cool. The only allegations to that effect have been in unsupported news claims or defense filings that had not even been answered at the time AUSA Levy confirmed the existence of the federal grand jury. It raises the question why the apparatus of the DOJ would intervene. So now he's getting more direct. Even as such issues are still being harassed by a justice of the Massachusetts Superior Court without some additional impetus on the part of the United States Attorney's Office, without dismissing the important role of the DOJ in investigating allegations of police misconduct and federal violations, we bring to your attention what appears to be additional concerns concerning motive, conflict, or appearance of conflict and potential bias by the Office of the United States Attorney for Massachusetts, which might explain these unprecedented proceedings. I predicate the following information with the fact that it has been the policy of the Norfolk District Attorney's Office during my 12-year tenure as a district attorney to maintain a close working relationship with the United States Attorney for Massachusetts. Notable in that relationship was the cooperation of the Norfolk District Attorney's Office in the prosecution of a 35-year-old murder. So now he's like going like trying to say, I would never. I would never. I would never. And he talks about this other case, this Whitey Bulger case, which I was not familiar with because, again, I'm not from Boston, but that apparently was like a gang of like a Boston Irish gang war that had happened back in I think the 60s or the 70s, because Michael Morrissey's been around for a minute. He was in the House of Representatives and he was also in the Senate for a bit. So I think both for 20 years or so, give or take, and then he's been the DA for 12 years. The Norfolk District Attorney's Office had statutory jurisdiction to pursue the case, but in the time of interest of cooperation, acceded to the request of the United States Attorney at the time to allow federal prosecutors to proceed with the case. As a result of that agreement, the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office in Massachusetts State Police assigned to the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office worked closely with the U.S. Attorney's Office on the case. During this period, AUSA Dustin Chow, without nexus to that prosecution, asked a Massachusetts State Police detective involved in the matter if he had any kind of damaging information on the district attorney, first assistant, or the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office. So I think this is the assistant who worked in his office, and this is her husband, Dustin Chow. This sua sponte question was not without context. Laura G. Chow, Dustin's wife, had been an employee of the Norfolk. There we go. Prior to the case mentioned above. So now he's just firing it off. Instead, she resigned and filed an ethics violation complaint with the Massachusetts Board of Bar Overseers against the first assistant in the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office. Complaint before the board was summarily dismissed. In short order, Laura G. Chow was instead cited for a violation of her ethical obligation to provide accurate address information for her practice. Long after separation, she was misrepresenting her address as a Norfolk County DA. So it's just like a lot of behind-the-scenes drama. I began composing this letter well before the May 17th, 2023 publication of the DOJ Office of the Inspector General report, which has apparently prompted the resignation of the current United States Attorney of the District of Massachusetts. My attention is drawn to several portions of Section 2, particularly as they pertain to the weaponization of the U.S. Attorney's Office for personal, political, retributive purposes. We asked Rollins whether her disclosure was retribution so again, he's pointing the finger back at Rollins. DOJ findings and questions reinforce my belief that the United States Attorney's Office for the District of Massachusetts must be removed from whatever investigation is being conducted into the Reed matter. I believe that a reasonable person could conclude that the same type of tactics are being employed against the Norfolk District Attorney's Office in the Reed investigation. The outgoing United States Attorney has made no secret of her personal animosity towards me, including repeated crude, outlandish, personal, and professional attacks against me in the media during her time as Suffolk District Attorney. See Exhibit E. I'd love to see that exhibit. The head of the Public Corruption Unit has raised the specter of personal retaliation for his wife's departure from the North. So again, he's like, I'm being attacked. Where? Is this all about me? It's all about Michael Morrissey. It's not about John O'Keefe. You realize how little he mentions John O'Keefe throughout this whole. And I think too, like LTL brought up a good point. I don't even know if they called him Officer O'Keefe. Oh, no, they did. Okay, Boston Police Officer O'Keefe. But earlier, the death of John O'Keefe. So, you know, it just feels very like, poor me, I'm the victim. Everybody else is the victim but John O'Keefe. The public has the right to a U.S. Attorney's office that is fair and unbiased as it executes its responsibilities. Weaponizing the U.S. Attorney's Office to conduct an unprecedented intervention into an open state murder case appears to raise the same concerns outlined in the DOJ's report. I submit that the pattern of using the USAO for personal purposes established in Report 23071, coupled with the obvious conflict of AUSA Chow, make it impossible. So I feel like he's just trying to stack on as much as possible, honestly. Make it impossible to conclude that a fair evaluation of the unprecedented Reed intervention can be deducted by any party within the Massachusetts office. So who do you think should be doing the digging then, Michael Morrissey? Who do you think should be doing the digging? It is impossible to determine how far the tentacles of bias have spread. Now he's getting cheeky with his words. Spread out from the chief of the relevant unit and titular head of the office. I cannot. I formally request that an impartial federal official unaffiliated with the U.S. Attorney's Office for Massachusetts review and investigate the steps and actions that are being taken. So he wants to have control. He wants to have control. I want to know. It should be somebody who's not from Massachusetts. It should be. So then who should it be? Who should be doing this investigation? The truth is, you don't want anybody doing any digging. Exploring this apparent bias and whether it's predisposed them to abuse their prosecutorial discretion in that matter. In the unlikely case that an impartial review finds a DOJ investigation into the Karen Reed matter is appropriate, even before the issues at hand have been vetted by the Norfolk Superior Court judge hearing the case, I request that the investigation be reassigned from parties with clearly stated and documented bias against members of the Norfolk District Attorney's Office to attorneys entirely outside the Office of the United States Attorney of Massachusetts. God, what a word salad, Michael. Yikes. Okay, so that was a chunky letter. That was May 18th. Okay, I think this is the next one. Yeah, we read that one. June 1. Okay, a lot of these other ones are a lot shorter. Okay, June 1. The Honorable Michael Morrissey. This is from the office. Okay, so he just wrote to them. Now they're getting back to him. I like how they call him the Honorable. That's pretty ironic. Dear Mr. Morrissey, the Office of Professional Responsibility, OPR, received your May 18th, 2023 letter requesting the OPR investigate the decision by the U.S. Attorney's Office for the District of Massachusetts to subpoena individuals who are witnesses in your pending state prosecution, Commonwealth versus Reed, to testify before the grand jury in an ongoing federal investigation. You stated that the USAO's investigation is possibly an abusive witness exercise of power, and likely biased only on defendant Karen Reed's specious claims of witness and police misconduct. In addition to an investigation of the USAO's investigative decision, you requested that the OPR, so they're acknowledging this is what you said, we're acknowledging this is what we received from you. Transfer USAO's pending investigation to another office without a history of conflict, bias, and abuse. So again, they're just summing up, this is what you sent us, we're acknowledging this is what we read, this is how we interpreted it. OPR has jurisdiction to investigate allegations of misconduct involving Department of Justice attorneys that relate to the exercise of their authority to investigate, litigate, and provide legal advice, as well as allegations of misconduct by law enforcement personnel that are related to allegations of attorney misconduct within the jurisdiction of OPR. However, it is the possibility of this office to refrain from investigating such issues or allegations if an active investigation is ongoing or litigation is pending. With regard to your request that another office be assigned to the pending grand jury investigation, a matter of outside of OPR's jurisdiction, OPR forwarded your complaint to the Executive Office for U.S. Attorneys, EOUSA, for whatever action it deems appropriate. Further inquiry regarding that issue may be directed to General Counsel J. Macklin. Thank you for advising OPR of your concerns. So they were pretty much like, yeah, sorry, buddy, we can't help you out with this one. Okay. So, June 12th. This is the next one. So this is back to Lynn Bayland, the first assistant. Dear Assistant Bayland, thank you for your letter dated May 9th, 2023. My apologies for the delay in responding, but I have been tied up with transition issues. We understand your office has important discovery obligations in any criminal prosecution. At this juncture, we have no issue with you advising defense counsel about the contact we have had with your office and the information we have shared if you determine such a disclosure is warranted. We are mindful of the important concerns raised in your letters, and we will be back in touch with you as circumstances dictate. So this is from the U.S. attorney, and they're like, yeah, you can let the defense know, because remember, the DA's office was like, oh, well, the reason why we're so pressed for this matter and what we need to find out what you're investigating exactly is because we just have an obligation to the defense to enter it into discovery. And Judge Levy's like, yeah, okay, go ahead. I don't care. So that was June 12th. Just make sure. Okay, yep, we did May 18th. That was a big one. We did June 1. We did May 9. Yeah, I think we're on October 12. Oh, no. No. We're on this one. Yeah, okay. June 21. So I believe there's 8 letters in total. Most of them are shorter than that one where Morrissey was crying victim. So this is to Macklin. So who they recommended, like the OPR recommended, hey, we can't help you, but reach out to General Counsel. Dear General Counsel Macklin, this letter is to inquire about the status of a request for a transfer of investigation due to the conflict of interest. On May 18th, 2023, the Office of Norfolk District Attorney sent the letter to OPR, a letter raising concerns as to a potential investigation of the United States Attorney's Office for the District of Massachusetts involving witnesses relating to a pending state criminal matter, Commonwealth versus Reed, and the death of John O'Keefe, in Canton, Massachusetts on January 29, 2022. This office wow, I cannot speak anymore. Sorry, guys. Has subsequently received a June 1st, 2023 letter from Jeffrey Ragsdale, counsel for OPR, reflecting that, again, they couldn't help. Indicated that the pending grand jury investigation should be reassigned. The appropriate office to address that request was the executive. Yeah, that's what you wrote, but they didn't say that. This is to inquire about the status of, yeah, you already said that one. Request and provide contact information for any further information you may require. If you have any questions or you're looking for any additional information, I may be contacted as set out above. It's a weird way to say it. Okay, so that was to J. Macklin, June 21. So then August 23 is the next one. So this is from J. Macklin. Dear Miss Bayland, this response to your June 21st letter concerning your putative request for recusal of the United States Attorney's Office for the District of Massachusetts from the pending state criminal matter, Commonwealth versus Karen Reed. As you indicate, the Department of Justice Office of Professional Responsibility, OPR, informed you that they had referred, again, they're just acknowledging what they sent, confirming this is how we interpreted what you said. Consistent with the terms of the referral from OPR, I contacted Acting United States Attorney Joshua Levy. Based on my understanding from that discussion with USA Levy, His office has a very different opinion of the circumstances in this case than as presented in Mr. Morrissey's letter. His office has not reached any official determination whether prosecution is warranted. I'll read that again. His office has not reached any official determination whether prosecution is warranted, but they believe it is essential to continue their investigation given the information of which they are aware. At this time, we see no basis for a recusal in this investigation. Thank you for your contact information and willingness to provide additional information as needed. Sincerely, J. Macklin. So, sorry, Lynn. Sorry, Morrissey. Okay, so then we have this October letter. I think this is the next one. So it's just like so hard to keep track because they're all out of order. Okay, yeah. Yep. We just read that one. Sorry, guys. Yep. Yeah, this is the next one. So now they're back to levy. After they got rejected by not one person, but two. Dear First Assistant Levy, as a follow-up from our communication dated May 9th and your June 12th response. On September 15th, 2023, the Norfolk Superior Court set a trial date of March 12th, 2024 in Commonwealth versus Karen Reed on the indictments for second-degree murder, manslaughter while operating under the influence, and leaving the scene of personal injury and death. Under the Massachusetts Rules of Criminal Procedure, mandatory discovery includes items and information within the Commonwealth's possession, custody, or control relevant to the case, including statements by the defendant, Karen Reed, statements of persons who testified before a grand jury, and grand jury minutes. So that already happened. The grand jury stuff already happened in July. Facts of an exculpatory matter, material, irrelevant police reports, photographs, tangible objects, reports of physical examinations of any person, and scientific tests and experiments, and statements of persons intended to be called as witnesses in disclosure of promises, rewards, or inducements, made to witnesses the party intends to present at trial. Commonwealth also has the duty to notify the defendant of items, again, just going to pull this, Rule 14, that are known to exist but are not within its care, custody, or control, and to provide all information known as the item's location and the identity of the persons possessing the item. See this. To effectuate our discovery obligations, we are requesting statements, investigators, and grand jury minutes of witnesses in your investigation, as well as to the extent they may exist. Any of the other above described items or materials, given the impending trial date, I mean, it's October, and the trial isn't until for 6 months, and it got pushed back. So, I mean, you got time. I don't know how long it takes for all this stuff to process. Again, I'm not a legal expert, but I imagine they got some time, right? Given the impending trial date, prompt disclosure is critically important. If there is a need, no, you just want to know what they're digging into so that you have enough time to be like, all right, what fires do we got? What do we got to do to get ourselves in good shape for this thing? If there is need for a limited disclosure of such items, please include such a request. We are willing, with the appropriate foundation, to file a motion protective order under Mass R. Crim to request limitation of the disclosure of the information to defense counsel only. Any decision of such request, of course, is solely within the authority of the Norfolk Superior Court judge. Similarly, we are willing to facilitate the process or to a request under federal R. Crim for authorization from a federal district judge for production of the grand jury minutes and related material, if any, what if any, and to discuss per that rule under what conditions that material may be released for use in the state judicial proceeding. Additionally, the office has constitutional and state obligations to provide exculpatory information, of which we are aware in all cases, including exculpatory information relating to all witnesses and or members of the prosecution. This would include any investigation into misconduct related to professional duties If any such information exists, it is imperative that we learn of it in a timely manner. It is imperative that at the earliest opportunity, how many times are you going to say that? We are able to provide discovery to the defendant if the I like how they're trying to use the defense as the scapegoat. Like, we have to get this to them. Like, it's so important. That's why we keep bugging you about this. If the investigation remains ongoing, we request notice of the status and information as to when the investigation may be concluded, in particular, whether the investigation is anticipated to conclude prior to the March 2024 trial date. Okay, so again, that was October. Now we're going to jump into November. All right. I think, yeah. I just want to check. Okay, cool. November. So this is to the FBI from Morrissey. Dear SAC Cohen, so special agent in charge. It was a pleasure to meet with you at the State House for the governor's press conference on hate crime enforcement. Because remember, he's on that board or something. I want to again extend my welcome and best wishes to you in your role as the Boston special agent in charge, and look forward to working with you in the future. I also want to renew this office's offer for your agents to speak to those state police who were involved in the John O'Keefe. Now he's just reduced to John O'Keefe. John O'Keefe murder investigation. My first assistant district attorney also mentioned our willingness to talk to the FBI and to the acting U.S. attorney in our recent phone conversation. If you would like to have your investigators talk to state police, they can contact Detective Lieutenant Brian Tully. So this is sensitive information. I know there's like a lot of phone numbers and emails. I know you guys are good. I know you guys aren't going to harass anybody, but I have to say this. Do not call these people. Do not steep down to their level. Don't harass them. Don't bother them. Don't call these numbers. Don't email them. If you want to show your support for Karen, protest, make donations, get the word out, share as much news and get the information out there. But I know you guys are good, so you're not going to do that. Okay, so that was on the 22nd. And then, I think this is the last one. Y'all. Yeah. Yep. Okay. Last letter. So fast forwarding from November to January 12th, this is via email and overnight delivery to Judge Cannoni, the judge in the Karen Reed case, from Josh Levy. Dear Justice Cannoni, with respect to the above captioned matter, we received notice via letter dated June 9, 2024 from counsel for the defendant regarding the Commonwealth's motion for protective order pertaining to Commonwealth's notice of discovery pursuant to Mass Art P with associated 6 attachments. We additionally received copies of the motion, the defendant's opposition, related filings, including copies of the 8 letters at issue, so these letters. We're also aware of the upcoming hearing scheduled for January 18th, 2024. So again, that's why they were like, we gotta get this in before then. We appreciate the opportunity to be heard on this issue. Having reviewed all of the materials referenced above, the Department of Justice and the U.S. Attorney's Office for the District of Massachusetts do not object to public disclosure of the correspondence at issue in the pending motion. And there you have it, kids. Those are all the letters. Those are all the letters that have been made public. Sorry, I'm like coming down with something, I think. So I'm getting that Michael Morrissey stuffy nose tone. But yeah, I know this was a long one. We had a lot to cover today, but I want to make sure I got you guys something for you to watch loom over the weekend. And then we'll catch up again on Monday. But what do you think about those letters? What do you think? I mean, again, I'm not an attorney, but I'm more than happy to bring on. And if any of you guys are attorneys, or you know somebody who's an attorney or law enforcement, and they've been, even just loosely following this case, and they're willing to come on, I'm more than happy to bring them on and get that perspective. I think it's important for us to continue to learn, understand, and grow. But from my understanding, just to sum up, it seemed like Morrissey, it feels like things go way deeper. It's not just about Officer John O'Keefe. It's not just about this murder. It's about a lot of things. And I think even going back to some of the prior testimony with Brian Higgins and him going to the military base to destroy his cell phone with the 2 garbage bags, it's just, like, so bizarre. I think it goes way deeper. I think this goes back for many investigations. I mean, you have to think about somebody like Morrissey, who's literally sat in the Senate, he sat in the House of Representatives, he sat in the DA's office. He's been living a cushy life for the greater part of his career. He has to know things. He has to have seen things, and I'm sure more and more is going to come out. And again, it goes unfortunately beyond just Officer John O'Keefe, and unfortunately, he's he's the guy. He's the case. His case is what's going to uncover a lot of this other stuff, and it's sad, but it seems like that's the way it is. These things are always politically fueled, and it boils my blood. It definitely does, because at the end of the day, I know all that we all care about. I think we, as a community, we can all agree that we just want justice for John O'Keefe. We want justice for Officer John O'Keefe. We want to see that our justice system is something we can believe in. We can trust that the police are people that we can put our faith in and know to do the right thing, and that we're not going to get screwed over, just like Karen Reed as well too. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. I have a date night with my wife, and I know that she's definitely not happy that I've run on this video for this long. But if you enjoyed today's video, if you think this news is important, I'm not going to stop talking about this case. I'm not, until we get justice for John O'Keefe. Yes, we are going to be covering many other cases as well too. If you have information about this case, if you have, again, even if there's members of the jury from the first trial and they're open and willing to come on, I know I'm a small channel, so it's a lot less risk, a lot less people. If you're willing to come on even anonymously, or just give me any kind of statement, that would be incredibly invaluable, and I would really appreciate it. And I know this community would too, because we want to help. And that being said, if you want to help Karen Reed, I'm going to include her defense fund link in my description below too, so you can donate to Karen Reed's defense fund. And if you don't believe that Karen Reed is innocent, if you believe she is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, and you just think that Lally and friends ruined it and didn't prove their case, I'm open to having that discussion as well too. I'd love to know what evidence you feel like supports your line of thinking and why you think she's guilty. But again, and I've said this a number of times, I just haven't seen it on my end. So that being said, if you like today's video, make sure you hit the subscribe button, make sure you hit the notification bell so you never miss another video from me, and make sure you hit that like button so that the algorithm on YouTube says, yes, this news is important, because it is important, and we need to continue to put pressure on the parties involved. And I'm not just talking about, the McCabe's or the Alberts. I'm talking about public pressure from the people who are responsible, and that is the DA's office. That is what this is really about. So thanks so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.